Welcome back. Today we're going to do something very different than we've done before. Rather than doing a lecture where I tell you about things, I'm going to have you do the kinds of activities that I would want you to do if we were actually in a class sitting down together. And that's going to mean that we're going to pause the lecture and I'm going to ask you to produce some things that you don't have to share with me, but you will share with the class your final result. We're going to talk about how to generate a good idea for writing a paper. We've been talking about generating good ideas for solving big kind of world historical problems. Today, we're going to look at the problem of coming up with something worth saying in a paper, and we're going to explore a few strategies that you can use to take a paper topic from a very broad, amorphous kind of prompt to a specific thesis that you can write about. We're going to use two essays today. If you look at the reading for this week, you have three essays. One is Garrett Hardin's Lifeboat Ethics, which is one of the things you can write your paper on that's due on Friday. The other one is Lin Chechu's Letter to Queen Victoria, which I'm going to use in this presentation as an example. Third one is Mahatma Gandhi's Economic and Moral Progress, which just for the purpose of the exercises of this video, I'm going to ask you to use to generate a thesis and a brief paragraph at the end of this video that you will share with the class. So we're gonna go through some exercises. I'm gonna use do some sample exercising with the Letter to Queen Victoria, and then ask you to do the same exercises with Gandhi's Economic and Moral Progress. Most papers that get good grades, at least when I'm grading them, fail not because the writing itself is bad. Very often, papers that I give a low grade to are very well written. They have no grammatical errors. They have nice language. They have nice expression. They fail because they're about things that aren't worth writing about. And this is especially true in the kinds of argumentative papers that you're going to be writing for this week. An argument, a thesis statement, must be based on a good idea. If it's not, then no matter how well written the paper isn't going to be very good. And in the sense that I'm using it, idea and thesis are the same thing. A good idea will become a good thesis statement, and the thesis statement needs to be something that is worth writing about. A little review of last week's lectures. Thesis statement must be arguable. It needs to be a point that a reasonable person could debate. It needs to be focused. It needs to be supportable. And now I'm going to add one from chapter 10. It needs to be interesting. Thesis statement needs to be something that is going to hold the reader's attention. It's going to be, it doesn't mean that it has to be the most fascinating thing on earth, but if I'm grading a stack of papers that all say the same thing, the paper that doesn't say the same thing is going to float to the top. So let's look a little bit at the kinds of thesis statements we don't want, and then I'm going to take you through some exercises to get to the kind of thesis statement that you do want. So let's imagine that I've been asked to write a paper, any paper making an argument about for or against Lin Chechu's Letter to Queen Victoria, asking that she intervene in the opium trade in China. Here are four not good ideas that lead to not good thesis statements. First of all, the not debatable thesis statement. Lin Chechu wrote a letter to Queen Victoria asking her not to send opium to China. Well, yeah, he did. There's no point in writing a paper about that. Unfocused. Lin Chechu made many arguments about why opium should not be in China. And this kind of paper would then become a kind of a laundry list of his various arguments. It would be a summary of the paper, but nothing like an argument about the paper. The unsupportable. Lin Chechu was really against opium because he wanted to sell it himself. Well, there happens to be no evidence for this, and there's certainly nothing you can derive from the text to talk about this. And then the just downright boring. Lin Chechu was opposed to opium because of the negative effects it had on the Chinese people. Well, yeah, that's true. It's provable. You have the right format, this claim and the because clause. but it's just really a boring thing to write about, and it's the kind of statement that 99% of people who are writing a paper about this are going to immediately think to write something like that. You've got to do better. First strategy that you should consider when you're trying to turn a topic into a good idea is pre-writing. And this consists of just putting your pencil to the paper or starting to type on a word processor and typing anything that comes to your mind. I usually spend about 5 minutes just kind of writing down a paragraph or a bulleted list of things that come to my mind, and I find that it really gives me a good way forward. So watch me as I do this, and then I'm going to ask you to do it on a different topic. Yeah, I kind of like that. Gives me the opportunity to try to focus in on not just agreeing or disagreeing with the essay, but making an argument about why it perhaps wasn't as effective as it could have been. Now it's your turn. I want you to open your word processor or just pick up a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and pre-write for 5 minutes, imagining that you have the assignment to write an argument essay on some facet of Gandhi's economic and moral progress in your textbook. Ready, set, go. Second strategy I'd like to see you try is called clustering or mapping, and that's just to create kind of an external structure of the arguments that you're trying to make. What I'm going to do here, I take from my pre-writing the idea that Lynn made some mistakes about England that affected how he wrote this letter, and I just tried to cluster some of the mistakes. And you can see that over on the right-hand side, we start to get the formation of a paper, that Lynn doesn't seem to understand the British power structure, and he thinks the Queen is like the Emperor. He misunderstands how the military and the economic structures of England are connected. That looks like a line that I can follow. So from this, I'm going to work in just a second, work into a thesis statement. But first, I'd like you to go back to a piece of paper. I did this with PowerPoint graphics. It's a lot easier to do with just a piece of paper and a pencil. But take what you did with your free writing and see if you can turn it into some kind of a graphical representation of your argument, and see if that helps you to focus what you might want to write a paper about. So here's the thesis that exercise produced. Lin Se-shu's letter was an ineffective response to the opium trade because it misunderstood the British power structure during the reign of Queen Victoria. That's my assertion. The letter was ineffective, and that's my because clause, because it misunderstood the British power structure during the reign of Queen Victoria. This is a thesis that's going to let me talk about misunderstanding the power of the Queen, misunderstanding the economic structure, misunderstanding the military structure. It's going to take a little bit of outside work, but it's a very supportable thesis statement, and, at least in my opinion, it's interesting. A lot more interesting than simply summarizing what Lin Se-shu was trying to do. Now I want you to do exactly the same thing. You should by now have gone through the exercises. I want you to post your thesis statement about Mahatma Gandhi's economic and moral progress to the bulletin board, and then I want you to give just a very brief summary discussion of how you would turn that into a paper. And then on Wednesday, we'll look more at the actual paper that you're writing, and you should be in the drafting process by now, and talk about how to apply these same strategies to that idea. Thank you very much.